I bring you greetings from the swamp. We're not drained yet. And the battle for truth in the Trump age is an epic. Part thriller, part comedy, part tragedy. My alma mater, the Washington Post, ran an article recently citing 3,001 false or misleading claims from our president since he's been in office. Do my friends and acquaintances deep in Trump country believe those numbers, or even the Post standing to cite them? They emphatically do not. There's a time-honored aphorism. For those who feel a lot, life is a tragedy. For those who think a lot, it's a comedy. For today, I want to take as my inspiration the great investor, Charlie Munger. There's a Munger building here at Stanford, I believe. He gave a graduation speech at Harvard School on how to ruin your life, which is a nice twist on the usual heart-stirring pablum that's given to graduates, and a fine example of Charlie's belief in inversion thinking as a way to arrive at the right answer. I just came this weekend from his and Warren Buffett's Woodstock for Capitalists in Omaha, where 35,000 howling value investors arrive and invaded and listen to the sages for 6 hours of Q&A. And Charlie's inversion thinking is still going strong. Now, in case you were wondering, this is just a little sidelight. The short version of ruining your life is nurse resentments, thrive on envy, alter your moods through chemicals, be unreliable, and depend only on your own experience. So in this era, where post-truth has become the word of the year in 2016, according to the Oxford Dictionary, though maybe post-trust is a more apt diagnosis now, I thought we may be able to look at 10 different ways to be better deceived, with helpful examples from journalism, Wall Street, the intelligence community, the Kremlin, and our ever-inventive political impresarios. We are all waiting, by the way, for Robert Mueller to give us the answer. No doubt this crowd will immediately think of some better examples than what I have, but this might be the start of a quasi-academic field, self-deceptionology. A way of embracing our inner ignoramus, facing the future untroubled by second and third thoughts, counterexamples, and nagging doubts. It might serve as a rich trove for future historians of our benighted century. Because, as Jack Nicholson famously said in A Few Good Men, you can't handle the truth. And although he was the bad guy in the movie, there was some truth in what he said. How do I know this? I'm married to an emergency room doctor. When she asks a question, often with lots of blood and very little time, she has to get the truth, and she usually does. I asked her once why she liked ER work, and she said, because it's a no-bullshit world. Aha, I said, having a little epiphany on the spot, that's why we're a great couple. I come from the all-bullshit world. Washington politics, Hollywood entertainment, New York television, Wall Street, True Blue News. We're 49 years together and still going strong. So here are a few notes distilled from a 40-minute talk towards the Devil's Dictionary of greater self-deception in the new age of news. And that's, by the way, with a bow towards the local hero, Ambrose Bierce, who wrote the original Devil's Dictionary from San Francisco, with definitions like, war is the devil's way of teaching Americans geography. True then, true from here to Kandahar. First, get interested in conspiracies and their theories. Find fascination in it. They lead to hunts for dark plans made by shadowy, powerful groups, and sometimes they're even true. See Watergate, a third-rate burglary at the Democratic National Committee headquarters in 1972 when I was a young editor at the Washington Post. Here we see, in 2016, then President-elect, who rose to prominence on right-wing social media promoting questions about the birther conspiracy theory. Was Barack Obama really born outside America and therefore an illegitimate president? Eventually, just before the election, Donald Trump acknowledged that the two-term president was born in America. As this picture was taken, stay with me, the national security team appointed by Obama was looking into the ties between the Kremlin and elements of the Trump campaign. An idea of conspiracy and counter-conspiracy now roils Washington to this day. Is Trump a Putin stooge? What's with that dirty dossier? Is Trump a victim of a deep state cabal of senior intel officials who despise him and see themselves answering to a higher cause? We await the day that Robert Mueller, there we go, there's Watergate. And here are the rogue spooks. This is a whole book on the deep state cabal for those who want to study more. We await the day Robert Mueller finally has his say. But even then, I fearlessly predict the losing side will spin a record round of conspiracy theories. Because, number two, stick with your tribe. We are a tribal people. In our cable choices, in our filter bubbles, as evolutionary psychology notes, we are the descendants of people who saw a tribe coming over the hill, and they had to decide very quickly, are they coming for trade or are they coming for murder? We're the descendants of the people who guessed right, at least most of the time. So we are naturally a suspicious crowd. Here's a counterintuitive fact brought out by two professors in a new book on American conspiracy theories. They note that in 2010, 41% of people who tended to be Republicans or were labeled Republicans, and a CNN poll believed Barack Obama was born in another country. Birthers, more or less. In today's climate, maybe not a surprise. But in 2006, a Scripps Howard Ohio University poll showed that 45% of those who leaned Democratic believed that the federal government knew about the plot or was somehow involved in 9/11. A cautionary note. They were truthers more or less, but as the professor said, on polls you've got to have second thoughts, and the second poll has been debated and reanalyzed with crosstabs and rephrasings. The short takeaway is that the hot bases of both parties can incline to extraordinary beliefs in extraordinary times. And it's a reminder of how soon we forget the dread aura of Dick Cheney. Remember him? And his undisclosed location and the power of tribes in our birthright. Number three, pursue scandals promiscuously. Stormy Daniels, fresh from her Saturday Night Live appearance. Monica Lewinsky, more than enough said by others, but she has a very good TED Talk in which she describes being patient zero as a scarlet woman in the dawning internet era. But she was not the first female victim of a partisan press. Consider Sally Hemings, Thomas Jefferson's slave mistress, who was, by the way, almost certainly his deceased wife's half-sister. Jefferson was a champion of the free press. He said if it were left to him to have government without newspapers and newspapers without government, he would choose the latter. You hear a lot of that at learned panels on journalism. But when a disappointed office seeker turned scandal-monger journalist exposed his children by Sally, much later virtually confirmed by DNA analysis, the man of Monticello changed his tune. That was in 1802. By 1807, Jefferson said, quote, "Nothing can now be believed which is seen in a newspaper. Truth itself becomes suspicious, being put into that polluted vehicle." I went to the University of Virginia. These are very painful. In 1814, Jefferson said, "I deplore the putrid state into which our newspapers have passed, and the malignity, the vulgarity, and the mendacious spirit of those who write in them." Not quite enemies of the people, but then Jefferson had seen the French Revolution where that phrase came from, and he knew about it. In fact, the Founding Fathers were the founding mudslingers, and we've enjoyed it quite a lot ever since. 4, chase the bright shiny. Here's Secretary Clinton with the fatal BlackBerry. Here's a passage from Amy Chozik's excellent new book, Chasing Hillary, described as the boys on the bus meets the devil wears Prada. Ms. Chozik covered both of Secretary Clinton's presidential runs and says the pull of tensions make a good story. Since the dawn of time, The Greeks didn't do puff pieces, she writes, but tensions mean that the subject of the story, in my case the Clintons, often don't think it's good. They think it's a heaping helping of bias ordered up by compromised, click-obsessed editors and written by unscrupulous reporters with below-average IQs. That last part killed me. But did the secretary understand the imperatives of clicks? Ratings on steroids in a declining industry. Guess who does? Here was one of the comedian Michelle Wolf's jibes at the press during her rousing and infamous performance at the White House Correspondents' Dinner a couple of weeks ago. You guys are obsessed with Trump. Did you used to date him? Because you pretend to hate him, but I think you love him. I think what no one in this room wants to admit is that Trump helped all of you. You helped create this monster, and now you're profiting off him. Number 5, delete context. Speed counts. Hot words sell. Anyone who's been in the middle of a big story, as I imagine many of you here have, knows that complications abound. Both sides of a story can often include multiple sides of a story. The tragedy of life, says one bitter sage in the classic movie Rules of the Game, the tragedy of life is that everyone has his reasons. But context and nuance take time. Neuroscience shows the quick ping of pleasure comes from hot headlines, instant surprises. And having that quick hit, our brains want more faster, which is why a new study detailed in Science magazine shows that fake news spreads 6 times faster on Twitter than real news. Number 6, worship history. Sorry, we're slightly out of order. Worship history and use its demons. Vladimir Putin is arguably the most powerful man in the world, says Fareed Zakaria of CNN. Not that Russia is stronger than China or the USA, but Putin is the most complete personal control of big state leaders. And Putin is a history man. His adept PR managers keep him spotlit as a traditional Russian strongman facing a dangerous world. In his custom-made limo, Putin has regularly listened to the audio of Russian history and historical novels as he rides across Moscow in the morning. With their tales of treachery and glory, of blood and betrayal, these history operas are usable. The New Authoritarian's Handbook is used in Tehran and Ankara, as well as Moscow and Beijing, and copycat capitals hopscotching our suffering globe. And it shows how national myth stirs loyalty. Remember Mao's struggles and the Opium Wars? Xi Jinping does. Remember the Shah? The Ayatollah does. Sorry. Weaponized history has little room for dissident views, and journalists who do the first rough draft of history are now paying a bigger price than in years past. Just this month, another Russian journalist exposing the Syrian follies of Mother Russia was found dead inside his apartment. Over 20 prominent journalists in Russia in Putin's time have been found dead, mostly unsolved deaths, sometimes blamed on those handy scapegoats, random Chechens. The less you know, the better you sleep, is the cynical Moscow saying. Number 7, live online. Fear missing out. Put your shining, intimate moments before 10,000 strangers in hope of provoking envy. Your groups will keep your psyche warm. Put all your data online. Enjoy the ads more than you should. The Buddhists talk of the hungry ghosts of desire. That ghost walks across your screens and whispers sweet nothings inside the algorithms that drive him there. Number 8, wait for AI to juice up the news. Did you see the story about the video of President Obama that was manipulated so that he realistically says things quite different from his true statement? The killer video clip of years past can now be manufactured out of rogue pixels. The inventors hope you won't misuse it. An MIT Technology Review recently ran an article on the coming threat of ever smarter AI's ability to both concoct and insert credible false news articles into the vast rivers of the internet. The day is coming when it will be hard to tell the difference. Is this a global scourge or a unique business opportunity? I sent this article to my friend, the great Winfield, not his real name, a Beltway bandit with impeccable credentials in deception from a 3-letter agency. Not to worry, he says. There's a hot chance to build out a reverse program to play spy versus spy. I've seen successful business plans sold on less, he says, and he wonders if I'll join him in the new enterprise we'll call Truth, Justice, and the American Way, LLC, in honor of Clark Kent, reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, back when there were a lot of those things. And by the way, Superman, without the psychological hang-ups of the current Supermans. Number 9, let your search engine solve all your troubles. Remember that third-rate burglary at the Watergate? Here's a story from Bob Woodward, the young Metro reporter who covered it. He's since gone on to bigger things, including a series of bestsellers about Washington national security issues. At a sold-out Newseum interview, I asked Bob about his campus talks. He said recently he had asked a group of students how they would cover a Watergate situation if they should come across one. First one said, "I'd start with Google." The Newseum laughed. Bob shook his head. Although on sober second thought, the answer may not be as bad as it first appears. Search engines give enormous knowledge and reach, but can give shockingly wrong steers too. Bob's point that night was that there's no substitute for first-hand reporting, as shown in All the President's Men. He said recently he was having trouble getting a general to answer his questions about a key policy. The general ducked call and email. Finally, Bob decided to go back to his youthful playbook. He went to the general's house at dinner time on a Tuesday night, 8:15, and knocked on his door. The general was both startled and amused to see this 70-something-year-old reporter outside. "Are you still doing this shit?" he said. And he let Bob in for a long and useful interview. Number 10, final, shut your eyes to your blind spots. In the last decade, a fine cottage industry has sprung up of books about our error-prone psychologies. The titles are revealing: Kidding Ourselves, The Hidden Power of Self-Deception, The Annals of Gullibility, The Confidence Game, Why We Fall for It Every Time, and The Big Daddy, Thinking Fast and Slow by Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, who devised ingenious experiments showing how we sometimes trick ourselves. Don't read these books. You will just become confused at how our flaws sometimes lead us to catastrophe, and great progress. Over-optimism in the face of challenges we know next to nothing about. We believe in our golden gut. We mix up causation with correlation. Was this event caused by, say, bluster from the bully pulpit, or did it just coincide with Kim Jong-un's professed desire to give up his nuclear weapons? The next Nobel Prize, this one for peace, may just depend on your interpretation. So just to remind, this has been an exercise in inverse thinking. The irony sign has been flashing the whole time, but not now. My emergency doctor's wife's greatest hero, Winston Churchill, says in times of confusion, return to first principles. Churchill said, a free press is the unsleeping guardian of every other right that free men prize. It is the most dangerous foe of tyranny. The key is to make sure the receivers of a free press can understand and interpret it in the tsunami of information and misinformation we face. Our next speaker, Esther Wojcicki, has the answer. It won't be easy. Here's the fitting parable straight from Howard Simons, the late managing editor of the Washington Post, an undersung hero of the Watergate investigation and author of Jewish Times. A small town in the West is set in a cul-de-sac canyon. Dreadful word comes. The dam 50 miles up is broken. Water is rushing down. There is no escape. The deluge hits in 2 hours. The Catholic priest gathers his flock, 48% of the town's population, and says we have to offer up our suffering to the Lord and be prepared to face judgment in 2 hours. The Protestant chaplain gathers his flock, also 48% of the town's population, and says, I told you your sins would catch up with you. Be prepared to face judgment in 2 hours. The Jewish rabbi gathers together his flock, 4% of the town's population, and says, we have 2 hours to learn how to live underwater. Esther's going to tell us how.
I'm not quite as entertaining as Shelby here. But I'm very realistic. And so I thought I'd just tell you a little bit about myself. So I wrote this book in 2015 called Moonshots in Education. It's been translated into Spanish as well. And the goal of that book is to show teachers and parents and all community members how we need to change the schools so that we can be more effective as teachers and as parents and as learners. And it's done really well. And I'm happy to say I'm writing a sequel, but it's actually, this one's going to target parents primarily. It will come out in January of next year from Houghton Mifflin. And the title is still in the hands of the publisher, I would be happy to tell you. So what we're doing is preparing students for a world they cannot predict. We can't predict. No one can predict. It's dominated by social media, artificial intelligence, climate change, and flat world competition for jobs. This is the world that I teach in. So I think journalism, studying journalism, provides real-world products for students, student agency, personalized learning, real-world skills, and tech skills. So my total agenda here is like, can we teach students how to think like a journalist? Journalists really, they have to use primary sources, and they have to figure out what's most important. Daniel Pink wrote this book, and he said, journalism teaches purpose, autonomy, and mastery. I agree 100%. I think students all over the world need this education. So these are skills for the 21st century: primary research, critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, communication, search skills, and interviewing. Let me just ask, how many of the students you know can do this? Very few, as far as I can tell. We need all students to ask those questions and know how to do this, and then they'll be able to figure out, the rabbi's question. Okay, so I have this huge program. It's the largest in the United States. At Palo Alto High School, I have 600 plus students. I've got 10 publications, all newspapers, magazine, websites, TV, radio, graphic design. It's great. A lot of kids love going to this program. It's all based on this moonshot thinking, giving kids control and agency. It works like a charm. But very few schools can do this. Very few. As a matter of fact, journalism programs in the United States are decreasing in number, not increasing. The first thing they cut, journalism. And PE, by the way. We don't want to exercise and we don't want to think. Okay, so this is, as I said, this is the largest program. This is what I produce, or the students produce, every 3 weeks. It's a full-size newspaper, and it has 3 sections. It looks like the New York Times, and the reason it looks like that is it's intentional. The kids want it to look like that. So there's a section on news, a section on lifestyles, and a section on sports. And we actually even produce a T magazine, just like the New York Times, only we call it C magazine. And so this is great. This shows what students can do, but the average program in the United States can't do it. And so, but they still need to learn these skills. We need all students have to have journalism training because they have to be able to figure out the fake news issue. And so this is part of what I'm talking about today. This is an acronym, ESCAPE, Escape Fake News. This poster comes from the Newseum. I'm collaborating with the Newseum and with Barbara McCormick, who does a great job. And so she tries out a lot of the ideas on my students and on me. And so we came up with this idea. So what does escape mean? This is what it stands for. Every story, every kid needs to figure out the evidence, the source of the story, the context, the audience, the purpose, and the execution. If they can remember those, then they can pretty much figure it out. Because all these social bots we're talking about that is going to do it for us, they are not going to do it. Because there's going to be somebody out there who's going to be able to figure out how to get around the social bots. So the only thing we have over all that automation is our brain. We need to train kids to use their brains. So evidence, do the facts hold up? So just take a look at this. All of you here, smart audience. Is this fake or not? How many people think it's real? Raise your hand. How many think it's fake? Why do you think it's fake? Just one person. Why is it fake? Anybody can tell me? Nobody? Let me tell you what it is. It's a fake news site. So they don't, here's another story from that same fake news site. They quote this woman, Althea Thune, a private nurse who apparently took care of Nancy Reagan. She's a fake name. Okay, here's another one. Look at this, Japanese whaling crew eaten alive by killer whales. Okay, 16 dead. Photo was stolen from news story 6 years earlier. You have to ask these questions. Evidence, what to look for. Fake people, fake organizations, misleading photos, statistics you can't verify, quotes you can't verify. You've got to look for that. Here's the source. Who made it? Who shared it? Do I trust them? Here's another fake report. If you search about the story and the first thing you come up with is fake fact-checking sites, you might want to ask yourself if this is a fake story. Turns out this is a fake story. Here's more social media fakes. Okay, so this is a fake Chinese tweet. By the way, Twitter is the #1 source of fake news. #1. Source, what to look for. Shady search result, suspicious URL or username, abcnews.com.co. The real Donald Trump, no contact info, the about page. So this is the kind of stuff I suggest we teach to all kids. All students need it. It needs to be required in every school, not just Palo Alto High School, where the kids are lucky. All schools, everywhere. How about this? Pluto has been officially reclassified as a planet. Anybody know what that is? Is that real? Why isn't it real? Who knows what happened on this? Nobody. This is an April Fool's joke. An April Fool's website. All these people believed it. So you have to look at the audience. Who's the intended audience? Cultural events, cultural trends, political goals, financial pressures. Who's the intended audience? Check this one. It came out twice with two, targeting a specific audience, right? Right? The Pope supports Trump, depending on, okay, went to the Republican group. Then the Pope supports Hillary, went to the Democrats. Can you believe that? And do you know, this was millions of views. Millions. So the audience, what to look for, image choices, presentation, techniques, language, content. Why was it made? Here's something I would love to show you. I don't know if I can play this or not. Does this play? How do I play it? Oh, here, I'll go here. Maybe they can play it in the back? No. Oh, it can't. Anyway, oh, wait a minute. Here it comes. Sort of. Oh, no, it's the wrong video.
I've already done it.
So we'll skip it because we don't have time. But anyway, let me tell you, it's a movie, and it was really popular, all paid for by the Russians, Russian government. So you have to look at the purpose, what to look for, the mission, money-making techniques, stated or unstated agendas, calls to action. Execution, how's the information presented? You take a look at this. If you see all these headlines in capital letters, you ought to be worried. Exclusive, kill, breaking news. By the way, I mean, that should be a giveaway. How about the squirrel, right? You should know. This is a joke. This comes from the Daily Mail, a British tabloid. So you want to look at the style, grammar, tone, image choices, so forth. Fake or real. So this was, here's something that's interesting. Do you think this is real or fake? Nuclear accident leads to mutant flowers. Turns out there were mutant flowers, but the nuclear accident was not the cause. So it was mixed. How about this? Tornado and rainbow appear side by side. Fake or real? This is real. Turns out it's real. How about this one? You should be able to pick this out. Which one? Is this real or fake? You should be able to pick it out easily.
Fake.
Why is it fake?
Spelling errors.
They misspelled bipartisan. So you should figure, you guys are really smart. Okay, Illuminati. Do they exist? No, they don't even exist. It's just a joke. Okay, how about this one? About America elects its politicians. So Justin Trudeau said, does anybody know what this is? This is a parody. It's a joke. And here's another one. Did he say it? Doherty urges public to kill drug dealers. Turns it's true. He did say that. Kill them. And here's the last one. Pink water. Is it true or not? At the end of the website, it says CO. Well, that would be guess. You'd be thinking no. Well, it turns out this is from Canada, and it was true. There was pink water coming out of the faucet. So, I'd love to do some more, but I think I'm at the end. So thank you very much, and support this project, All Students Learning Journalism.